This is the download recap from Sounds Profitable, the most important news from this week and why it matters to people in the business of podcasting. I'm Gavin Gaddis. The download recap is brought to you by Podscribe. You can find out more at podscribe.com. This week, why we're bringing podcast movement to South by Southwest and making it free. Netflix video podcasting aims to start strong. The Independent Podcaster Report 2025 inside the minds of 558 creators. Google's AI becomes YouTube's main door. And podcasting's diversity problem. 64% of hosts are male, 77% are white, study finds. Let's get started. Starting next March, the previously standalone event Podcast Movement Evolutions is merging with the now 3 years of podcast presence at South by Southwest, fostered by Sounds Profitable. Instead of choosing between two springtime industry events, now podcasting is firmly headed for Austin, Texas. In preparation, Barletta announces the venue Skybox on Austin's famous 6th Street has been reserved for the occasion, a venue with a capacity of over 400, open spaces for networking, lounges for companies looking to entertain guests, and both food and drink throughout the day. Here's a quote from Barletta, quote, "And here's the kicker. There are no Podcast Movement tickets required to join us. While this is an official South by Southwest partner event, we're opening registration to everyone, South by Southwest badge holders and non-badge holders alike. We're asking everyone to pre-register so we can manage capacity and keep you updated, but registration is free and there's no cost to attend. No South by Southwest badge requirement, no Podcast Movement ticket. This is an official South by Southwest partner event, fully listed in their schedule, but we're opening the doors with capacity as the only limitation, which is why we're asking for pre-registration, as you'll see below. Choosing to forego ticket sales and our only fully hosted event was not an easy decision, but it was absolutely the right decision with our goal of making it possible for podcasting to continue to show up in a way that can't be ignored." End quote. South by Southwest badge holders will get priority access, but the broader podcasting community is welcome as long as space allows. To that note, to allow the best possible experience at the event South by Southwest and Podcast Movement, ask everyone intending on attending to pre-register with a link that's in today's show notes. The free registration will facilitate direct communication about speakers, scheduling, and updates. In addition, it'll help with managing the venue's capacity responsibly and give the planners an indication of what's coming so the event can be arranged accordingly. In addition, the full hour South by Southwest podcast-focused sessions will kick off with a 10-minute presentation slot, which will be open for anybody to submit to. Registration signups for those 10-minute presentations will be made available in the coming weeks. Presenters will pitch their ideas to be voted on by an industry of their peers. Barletta says the team is working to establish an honorarium for the speakers as a thank you for supporting something new. Also, starting at the 2026 South by Southwest event, Podcast Movement will be following South by Southwest diversity guidelines, but also implementing similar guidelines for standalone Podcast Movement events going forward. Panels will be capped at 4 people, including moderators. Also, speakers copy-pasting themselves over multiple panels will no longer be an issue, as there will only be one chance to speak per speaker at a given event. Accessibility is a watchword for South by Southwest, as attendees have dozens of potential events from all forms of media to attend, basically at any given time. Uplifting the industry is paramount to Sounds Profitable and always has been. In the spirit of that, the Podcast Movement Evolutions events at South by Southwest are planning on taking advantage of the physical space to highlight independent podcasters live at the event. More on that as is available. Last week, we covered several instances of companies being approached by Netflix for video podcast licensing deals that would take full episodes of signed shows exclusive to the platform. Lucas Shaw, writing for Bloomberg, added some further context to his sources familiar with the matter. According to those sources, the deals are experimental in nature at 1 year in length and are relatively low in money offered. Some of the largest shows in the conversation likely even make more on the open web than their exclusivity contract offers. Also, the streamer has been directly contacting content creators to commission net Netflix new podcast. Tee har har. Later in the week, Lucia Moses, writing for Business Insider, brought even more behind-the-scenes details to Netflix's podcast shopping spree. Reportedly, the deal makers have made it clear that Netflix is aiming to have 50 to 75 podcasts on the platform when video podcasting launches early next year, with a potential upper ceiling growing to 200 concurrent podcasts over time. The podcast host has published the results of their Indie Pod survey, built from the responses of 558 independent creators with the goal of understanding the current state of independent podcast production. 25% of respondents have been podcasting for less than a year, with 1 to 3 years experience and not yet having launched a podcast tied for second place with 19%. And 3 to 5 years experience scored 15%. Excluding pre-launch respondents, the top 3 biggest challenges for surveyed podcasters are audience engagement, 32%, making money at 39%, and growing an audience and discoverability issues in general at 72%. 85% of respondents say their podcast is not making money, though the report notes elsewhere in the survey only 9% identified revenue and profitability as a primary measure of success. Profitability didn't crack the top 3 of the ultimate goal for your podcast section either. As a result, the low number of profitable podcasts might be the result of a majority of podcasters surveyed not specializing specifically in monetization or chasing it. McKinsey & Company research estimates AI-powered search will impact $750 billion in revenue in 2028, with half of consumers already using AI search in some capacity, for example, just using Google at this point. As is expected around the holiday season, more e-commerce searches hit the internet, but brands are not necessarily guaranteed to pop up in AI-generated search results. While traditional searches focused on own-site content, in a lot of instances, AI searches only source a brand site directly in 5 to 10% of searches. Which LLMs and why they do that varies depending on which company and which way the virtual wind is blowing on a certain day, as their models are changing rapidly. That said, YouTube dominates Google as the top-cited source for e-commerce AI overview results. 6.9% of e-commerce AI overview citations, almost 3 times the norm of any other non-brand domain, according to BrightEdge. Video podcasting on YouTube, in addition to the benefits of just being on YouTube in general, might also be a good play for brands and B2B ventures looking to catch the eye of AI search engines. A new report from Dr. Stacy L. Smith and the USC Annenberg Inclusion Initiative finds that the top 100 podcasts in 2024, of those, hosts were overwhelmingly male and white, 64% and 77%, respectively. Stats that don't change much when the study broadened its scope to the top 592 podcasts using both Spotify and Edison Research charts. A gap that could be impacting incoming audiences. In part 1 of the Podcast Landscape 2025 from Sounds Profitable and Signal Hill Insights, 48% of respondents who had ever listened to a podcast were women, while 59% of the never listened to podcast group were also women. Total monthly podcast listening is actually brought down on average by white respondents, who scored 52%, while Hispanic, Asian, and Black respondents scored at least 62% as demographics. Looping back to the USC study, Dr. Smith argues podcasting's inherent pitch as a medium is its democratic nature. Anyone with a microphone can make a podcast, theoretically. As the format matures into mainstream acceptance, the opportunity to embrace the voices behind those microphones, ensuring those that get support and promotion are as diverse as the audience consuming those podcasts, presents itself to the industry at large. Finally, it's time for my quick hits. These are articles I've covered from throughout the week that didn't necessarily make the space for top story coverage, but are still worth including in your weekend reading. Today, I've got for you Podcast Marketing Academy and Lower Street have partnered to publish a report built from a survey of 308 podcasters. From the detailed data shared by respondents, such as audio downloads, YouTube views, and consumption metrics, the report assigns return on investment ROI to both video and audio podcasting in terms of audience attention. iHeartMedia has partnered with TikTok to launch the TikTok Podcast Network, producing video podcasts co-branded with TikTok and hosted by TikTok influencers. The podcasts will be distributed by iHeart Podcasts and broadcast on iHeartRadio. Magellan AI is back with another of their industry case study reports, this time with the Podglomerate, who needed a consistent and transparent way to measure paid advertising, cross-promo, DAI, and baked-in placements. And finally, Spotify and the NMPA have launched a portal for independent publishers and songwriters to sign a direct licensing agreement, giving Spotify audiovisual rights in the United States in exchange for higher royalties. That'll do it for the download recap brought to you by Sounds Profitable and Podscribe. I know I went through today's stories fast, so be sure to check out the links to every article I've mentioned by clicking the link in today's show notes that'll take you to today's episode post on soundsprofitable.com. I'm Gavin Gaddis. Our producers are myself, Brian Barletta, and Tom Webster. And as usual, special thanks to you for sticking with me as I brought you the top stories you might have missed from this week in the business of podcasting. Robot.
Download complete.